Hi, this is Peggy from War. So our guest today is from Copenhagen, and this is Remonda Kirketerp Moller. She's the founder and CEO of Muinmos. Muinmos is a RegTech solution that uses a proprietary compliance engine to instantly validate clients globally. So thank you so much, Remonda, for being with us today. And before we dig in, would you like to maybe give us a few words on Muinmos and give our viewers a bit more context?
Yes, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you very much, Peggy, for having me here. We founded Muinmos in 2012, primarily driven by the headache of the complexity that the regulation was giving financial institutions in securing their compliance. Our core, if you like, proposition is in the client onboarding side. So what we do is we have different modules that enable the financial institution to instantly know whether they can onboard a client in a particular country for a particular product, a particular service, whilst obviously performing all the regulatory clearances and doing the KYC AML, as well as providing a risk matrix on the client for post-onboarding. How should they maintain the client account? How often should it be monitored? How the transaction should be carried out, and so forth. And yes, that's been our journey for the past 8 years.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. And you know, the business, I'm sure we're going to speak about that. The business probably on fire with what's happening. So that's a very interesting solution. I was lucky to see the solution already maybe 9 months ago, pre-COVID. Yes. Everything. It's one of the most impressive solution I've seen, and definitely the most impressive on that topic in particular. So I'm really happy to have you with us. So
thank you.
From your perspective, what are the major lasting impacts that COVID will have on the financial services industry?
I actually read a report even before COVID by Reuters, Thomson Reuters, and they mentioned that some of the biggest challenges they have is the regulatory compliance, keeping up to date with the different regulations around the world, and cybersecurity. So I would definitely say that those two, unfortunately, you could say, due to COVID, have been even more accelerated. And there's no shred of doubt that the complexity as it stands now is even more grave. And of course, due to the working from home limitations, lack of accessibility to certain possibly documentations in the offices, etc., it actually has become definitely something that every CEO in every financial institution should think about and put at the top of the agenda.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, while using solutions like yours to automate, and because what is done today is extremely manual. So
yes, absolutely.
Very difficult to manage the complexity of
exactly. I mean, the issue was already there even before COVID. Of course, had we anticipated COVID was on its way, there was no doubt that the strength we have in our platform and engine is phenomenal. But setting that aside, there's no doubt that every single financial institution has to move towards digitization and of course reliance on the machine to do the job that really we have been used to doing by humans for the past many years.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So from a policies and regulation perspective, do you see new regulations or policies coming down the pipe following the crisis?
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. In fact, we often have actually raised that as I wouldn't call it an issue, but more something of an opportunity that regulators should really consider. Even before COVID, one of the biggest obstacles we've had in the marketplace, being obviously a newly founded RegTech at the time. Now we've been in business for many years. But of course, is often you have the question coming from the institutions is how are you endorsed by the regulators? Are you approved? Are you etc., etc. And of course, even until today, there aren't really any form of regulatory, if you like, provisions that actually can put an umbrella around, for example, infrastructure like ours, in order to give the financial institution the comfort they need. They used to, for the past many years, working with KYC, AML, data sources, extraction in order to do validation at their end. But actually the area we're in above the KYC, AML is very new to the market. And that's really handled by lawyers and compliance officers in-house. And of course, sometimes also when they're doing cross-border business by external lawyers. So that's definitely new, and I definitely welcome the opportunity by regulators to actually consider an element of some form of strict guidelines around frameworks like our RegTech, in order to give the comfort those institutions need. And see it as another regulated arm of the business, but under a different kind of leg, if you like.
Yeah, it's always, unfortunately, tend to come a posteriori, which for companies like yours would actually be so much easier if there was a framework where you
Absolutely.
can, you know, obviously be compliant with. It tends to be led by the markets and companies like yours. So it's a
yes,
it
will come. It will come. We're not in doubt. Actually, we'll see it. In particular, when we are dealing in the financial sector, which is ultimately our main focus. We believe it will come, and we think it's a matter of time before RegTechs will have to have some form of regulatory, if you like, kind of umbrella around us in order to provide the institutions with that protective piece that connects into their infrastructure.
And I think that's very similar to cybersecurity.
Yes.
Today, you have the same level of, I would say, misguidance or lack of guidance, and you don't have this framework around
exactly.
what companies and financial institutions should do, which is a big problem. And that's a bit my next question. So what do you see COVID having in terms of impacts on the global financial stability, global financial order? Obviously, a lot of sovereign debt, a lot of inflation. We've seen a lot of cyber attacks as well. What's your perspectives gonna be after the crisis in terms of the global financial order?
I think, unfortunately, we will see many institutions going down. Simply the element of coping will just not be there. What we've experienced, having probably interviewed and also demoed and spoken to thousands of institutions around the world, is their ability to adapt is simply not there. Many of them are really doing what I probably would have expected some of these institutions to do 15, 20 years ago. And to actually leap from there to what we, at least ourselves, have today is just a completely different, even mental thought process, to be honest with you. So unfortunately, we will see a shift. We are, fortunately for us, would say that it's a change we're going through. With COVID, without COVID, we treat it as a black swan situation. And for pretty much a lot of institutions, if it's not this situation with COVID, there'll be something else. So I think, to be honest with you, it's a wake-up call. But of course, that opens up the opportunity for a lot of side effect as a result of that. And that definitely will mean that we will start seeing more attacks, cyber attacks. There'll be more also, of course, issues with how do you maintain the systems, how do you keep control, where do you store your data, how do you keep protection of data, etc. And that's hard as it is even before COVID, let alone after. But I think it's something that the market needed a shake-up in order actually to push us out of that comfort zone that I feel, in particular, having been in financial services now for almost 20 years, I think it's about time that there is a wake-up call.
Yeah, I like this idea of a wake-up call, because we've been speaking about it for so long.
Yeah.
But you know, in reality, very limited progress have been made. So in terms of actually resetting competitive positioning, what do you see happening with that COVID shift, and who do you think is going to win from that?
I think at least in the financial sector, the ones that can adapt quickly to change. I've been on many sides of the table, if you like. I worked in law firms. I've worked in financial institutions. I've also now working on the side in the RegTech. And I actually feel that a lot of financial institutions, they're often trying very hard to do everything themselves. Soon you will find many financial institutions converting actually from financial institutions to possibly law firms and compliance companies. And that's not the purpose, that's not their goal, that's not what we as customers need them for. They need to do what they're born to do and what they actually founded the institutions to do, and let others focus on the other core sides of the business. Because I can tell you from my 20 years experience now, this is not something you can do in a part-time job. It's not something you can do in you know, passing by. And certainly it's not something that will fix it by having 200, 300, 400 employees. That is not the solution. The solution is leaning on the newly founded RegTechs for this purpose, actually, is to aid and help and assist the banks in doing their job. And that's basically where we at least see the future, and like the institutions to also see the future as well.
And you're absolutely right. And I think that crisis really show that we as clients want the banks to advise us and help us with our financial well-being. I don't need my bank to become a regulation-driven company, a technology-driven company. That is better done by experts like you. Focus on financial products, focus on advice. And you know, it's interesting. The last 10 years, every banks wanted to say, "Oh, I'm a technology company." I'm like, "Why are you saying that? You don't want to be a technology company. Your DNA is to help people with probably the most important thing. If it's not health, it's wealth. You know, it's your money."
It is, absolutely, and that's the problem. That's where I feel that you're absolutely right, Peggy, that we hear it all the time is, oh, we're not a bank, we're a tech, we're a fintech now, or whatever tech term they find. And I think it's a shame, because we as customers, we need them there. For many reasons, we need them there. And I feel that their focus points are diverting. And it's a shame, because that actually the impact is on us. On the other side, and at the end of the day, it will have a huge knock-on effect on them as well, because it's quite, as you quite rightly pointed out, Peggy, I'm not looking for my bank to be a law firm. I'm not looking for my bank to be a regulatory expert. I'm not looking for my bank to be a technology company. I just want them to do what's best for me and what's best for the rest of the customers. And I think there's less focus on that, although they're trying to evolve and really come up with new ideas, new products, new ways of doing things. But I feel a lot of time is being spent also on the regulatory framework as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we touched a bit on what they are doing in terms of, you know, trying to transform themselves. Is there something where you see traditional FIs going? And you're a global company, so you see different aspects driven differently in different geographies. Any snippets you would like to share with us?
Sorry, Peggy, in terms of
digital transformation of financial institutions, where do you see this large institution moving post-COVID, or already right now? We talk about automation, digitization. They're not working at all the same speed in every country. What do you see?
I'm actually being very, very impressed and surprised with the US. Recently. The acquisition and the understanding is actually very, very advanced. We heavily focus in Europe. We are, as you know, we're in Europe. And we actually even had a lot of, if you like, resources invested into Asia. What I'm finding, strangely enough, is pockets of a lot of regulators. They're actually incentivizing their institutions, if you like, by giving grants, by given all sorts of different incentives in order to actually move them towards a more digital world. And through that, actually, they're being given a lot of incentives to do it, financial incentives to do it, which is fantastic. But I feel that the countries where a lot of this is happening, it's not actually moving the institutions more forward. I don't see as much happening in the US in that front, yet the sector seems to understand if you like, how technology and how RegTech and how digitization can truly bring their business forward and aid in getting past the COVID period we're in, and post that to actually be ready for anything that could come along. Where in other parts of the world, they seem to be much more cautious, less interested in trying and working it out, and more happy with the status quo. And that came as a surprise, in particular to us as a RegTech company over the past many years. I mean, when we founded Muinmos in 2012, RegTech wasn't even a concept at that time. So we definitely came in very early, and we've been monitoring the market ever since. The shift is quite interesting, actually, Peggy. I would definitely say we should watch the space. Don't underestimate certain jurisdictions. They may not necessarily be doing an awful lot on the regulatory side, but definitely the market is ready and willing to actually give it a go and give it a serious go, compared to others that are being handed grants left, right, and center, but without actually the human desire to want to make a change.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. And last question, maybe the lightest question of the series. So what have you done in the last 6 months in terms of your own transformation? Did you pick up some good habits like, I don't know, yoga or meditation every day? Or I know you've been working extremely hard. Anything you want to share?
I think everyone that knows me, Peggy, will probably say it's a lie if I sit here and tell you I've been doing yoga. That's never going to happen. We are busy, unfortunately, Peggy. So I spend a lot of my available time with my family. We have my husband and my daughter, who's 10, and we have a wonderful dog that keeps us busy as well. And unfortunately, in terms of habits, I would say my hobbies is my job. I love what we do. I absolutely love every day. I could sit and chew on regulation 24/7 and look for just fantastic trends that are happening in the market. And I know for some it's a job. For us at Muinmos, it's also a hobby, and we love it. But yes, I definitely could do with yoga.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Remonda, for taking the time to share your insights. It's always great to speak with people like you who are so deep and so knowledgeable. So that was really fantastic. So thank you again for taking the time.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Remonda. Bye.